Okay, maybe for the team, you guys can start to admit the participant because we have like 80, 800, 900. Oh my god, that's a lot of numbers. So perhaps I'm gonna lock the room. Oh my god, it's too late to lock the room. Wait, I'm gonna lock this meeting.
Lock. You have to lock the room now.
Shit. Okay. Okay, maybe we can just start waiting for the participants.
Yeah, sure. All right. Hello, everyone. Hello. How is everyone going? So yeah, we'll be starting soon. We're just waiting for everyone to get the YouTube links, and yeah, for people who are unable to enter the Zoom, we're trying to help Zoom to redirect them to go to the YouTube link so that they can also watch today's webinar through YouTube. So just hang on a sec while we sort everything out. And thanks for coming, everyone.
right, now that's already 7 p.m. Let's start our webinar. So, hi everyone, good evening and welcome to today's Wonder Voice webinar presented by Global Millennial Group. My name is Anthony and I will be your MC on today's event. On today's webinar, we'll be covering the topic of public speaking struggles, how to get your audience's attention, with an amazing guest speaker, Nadia Heng. Firstly, I would like to thank everyone for your participation in this event. We have received over 25,000 registrations for this event, and this would not be possible without each and every one of you. Our goal for this webinar is to help today's webinar participants to gain insights regarding public speaking and the basis on how to be a confident public speaker. Definitely an interesting topic, I would say, and I hope that each and every one of you would learn something important today. I want to also remind everyone that certifications will be processed through our feedback form, which will be distributed at the end of the webinar. Lastly, I would also like to thank our pre-event team, Alia, Ikrar, and Javon, who have worked so hard to make this event possible. All right, before we begin, I would just like to introduce you to our organization, Global Millennial Group. Global Millennial Group is a one self-developmental platform that strives for quality education and global youth empowerment through various educational programs. Our services span 35 countries with 15 plus programs, working with 270 plus partners to help more than 70,000 youths worldwide. Additionally, we are recognized and in cooperation with multiple government bodies and educational institutions. Some of our well-known programs include the Global Millennial MUN, Wonder Voice, Indonesia SDG Summit, and Be Global Indonesia. We also provide services such as CV review, which will definitely give you an advantage in today's competitive job market. To participate in our amazing events, please do check our various membership plans, which are bronze, silver, and gold packages as seen from the slide. Moving on, I would like to elaborate a bit about our Wonder Voice event. Our Wonder Voice program consists of two sub-programs, which are International English Speech Competition and Public Speaking School. Our next International English Speech Competition will be about the dark side of social media. It is a very relevant and crucial topic for our generation right now, and I can't imagine how exciting it would be to take part in this insightful speech competition. In our program, we also have a public speaking school, where we have students distributed into small groups together with an experienced mentor in public speaking. Moreover, students will engage in interactive consultations with mentors to improve their public speaking skills. Just to give you an idea on what Wonder Voice is, here are some testimonies we gathered from our previous Wonder Voice event participants. So please read the testimonies if you like. Alright, so register now through this link and use the reference code below to get a special discount. Alright. I hope everyone has noted down the information elaborated there. Now that everyone knows what we're all about, we'll officially commence the event with an opening speech from our Director of Event Management, Ms. Hara Alia Amani.
Hello everyone, am I audible right now? Yes, so I guess I am audible. So welcome everyone. Hi, good evening, hello. I hope you guys have a nice Monday today. So first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Haura Alia Amani, and I am the Director of Pre-Event Management in Global Millennial Group. On behalf of Global Millennial Group, I wanted to say thank you so much for you guys that joined tonight's webinar, especially our speaker, Miss Nadia Heng. I know she's such an awesome person, and I'm really glad to have her tonight. Also, I wanted to say thank you so much for the pre-event team, Anthony as the MC, Rani, Javon, Ikrar, and everyone that participated in making this webinar happen. I also have a special thanks to Mr. Audi as the CTO of Global Millennial Group and Mr. Mufid Fikri as the CEO of Global Millennial Group, because without their support, this webinar won't be happen tonight. And of course, we won't be able to together tonight with like I see I have like 1,000 participants and another hundreds and thousands in the YouTube live stream. So I'm so thankful for everyone that joined tonight's webinar. I hope this webinar will bring a great impact for everyone, of course. And maybe you can boost your public speaking skills through Miss Nadia Heng and with us, of course, Wonder Voice. So I hope this webinar will bring a good things, of course, positive things for you guys. And yes, I hope you enjoyed the webinar. Back to you, Anthony.
All right, thank you so much for the warm welcome and opening, Miss Alia. Okay, before we start, let me briefly introduce you to our speaker beforehand. Nadia Heng is a Malaysian public speaking coach, MC, and TV host. Nadia has worked with big corporations such as Panasonic, Honda, and OCBC Bank. Moreover, Nadia Heng is the winner of Miss World Malaysia 2010. Wow, definitely someone with a lot of experience in public speaking. I can't wait any longer for today's webinar, so without further ado, let's welcome Nadia Heng.
Thank you so much, Anthony, for that wonderful, wonderful introduction. So first up, I'm just going to go to the gallery view. If you guys can all hear me, can I see your thumbs up, everybody? Okay, fantastic. All right, so before I get started as well, I just want to say a huge, huge thank you to the team at Wonder Voice Global Millennial for having me today. It's really a privilege and an honor. So I want to ask all of you to please join me. Let's give literally, I know that all of you are on mute, but let's literally give a little round of applause for Anthony, Hara, and the entire team. Woohoo! Well done, guys. Thank you. All right, so my name is Nadia Heng. I'm very, very, very delighted to be here today to be able to share and impart my knowledge on public speaking with all of you. But first, how are you guys doing? Apa khabar semua baik tak? Thumbs up, everybody, if you guys are doing well. Yeah, awesome. Okay, I can see quite a lot of really nice, smiling, happy faces, and that's exactly the vibe that I want to have here tonight. I know it's all digitalized. It would be so much cooler if it was in person. However, this is definitely the next best thing, and let's face it, without technology, we would not have this many participants here tonight. So it's really, really a privilege. Okay, so I'm going to dive in. For those of you who may not know me, I'm just going to do a short and very brief introduction about myself. Thank you very much, Anthony, as well, for sharing some of my background. So I'm just going to share, just give me a moment. Let me open up. Oops, where did it go? Hang on. Okay, here we go. So let me know if you can see my screen. Thumbs up if you can see my screen. Okay, awesome. So I'm just going to very briefly introduce myself first to all of you. So I have been in the industry, in the entertainment industry for the last 10 years. I started off, as Anthony mentioned, in the pageant world back in 2010, and ever since then it sort of opened doors, and I found myself in the entertainment line. So I've been doing TV hosting for all kinds of TV shows, from motorsports to fashion to food. If you guys love food, I was hosting Food Magic. I also have started, ever since then, I went into becoming a professional master of ceremonies. So that means hosting events for corporate gigs, to gala dinners, to fashion shows, to car launches, charity events, fun runs with like tens of thousands of people, concerts, you name it. I think I've pretty much done and covered all types of events in the past 10 years. I've done thousands and thousands of events. So tonight, I'm so happy that I get to share my experience with all of you. Lately, or I should say during the pandemic, was when I started up a new program, which is really all about catering to help entrepreneurs, young people, executives to become the articulate speakers that you are all meant to be. So if you're curious about that at the end of today's program, please feel free to reach out to me. Now, that's a little bit about myself. Before we dive into the content, I would like to get to know you guys a little bit first, okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and pick some random names that I see here in the crowd. After all, we're all here for public speaking, look at that. So I'm just gonna pick out some random names, and I hope that when I do, you guys can unmute yourselves. And I just want you to introduce yourself to everyone here tonight, and also just share with us, what are your biggest public speaking fears? And also, what are your goals? Okay, sounds good? Okay, I'm gonna pick out, let's see, I love this pretty smiling face, Dila. Dila, would you care to unmute yourself? Dila Fergie, such a cool name. Hi, Dila. Oh, can you unmute yourself? Let me see if I can help you. There we go. Okay, you're unmuted.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Hi everyone, it's really nice to see y'all. I'm Komang Dila Fergie Saraswati. I'm going to be 16 this month. Exactly 3 days I gotta come, and I'm from Bali. I'm studying as the 11th grade of student. Yay.
Nice
That's all.
to meet you, Dila. Okay, cool. Do you have any public speaking goals, by the way? There's a reason why you're here tonight, so tell us what it is that you struggle with the most and what you want to learn.
I think my biggest fear of speaking in the public is actually to be judged as like, oh, your voice isn't that cool, or your grammar isn't that right, and any other, like being judged is my biggest fear. And my goal is just to let myself be free and feeling more comfortable on speaking on public, just like this way. But I'm still super nervous right now. I think this is also my biggest fear.
Well said, Dila, and thank you for having the courage to speak out and share your vulnerabilities here with us tonight. And I promise you, you're not the only one who's experiencing that. So hopefully tonight we can all learn and grow together. So thank you, Dila, for sharing. All right, let's pick on, let's see who else we have. Let's pick a dude. Let's pick a guy. Okay, I think Arkan Shamil. Hey, what's up, Arkan? I'm gonna try to see if I can help unmute you. Okay, there you go. So if you can.
Hello, am I available?
Yes, you are.
Yes. Okay, first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Arhan Mohammed Shamil. I am from MAN 13 Jakarta. I just turned 15 this year, and now I'm entering my 10th grade. And the reason why I joined this webinar, public speaking, is I've actually have some problems with my public speaking, especially in the introduction part, on how to catch your audience, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, English is also my second language, so I've been learning English since I was a kid actually, but I've started to learn English competitively when I was 12, and now I'm 15. So 3 years into English competitive speaking, and I still made a lot of mistakes. Also, I'm still improving. Yeah, so that is the reason why I joined this webinar. Thank you for your time.
Amazing, Arkan. Amazing. And I have to say, you and Dila, both of you are worried about your English, but to me, you both sound like you speak perfect English. So well done. And ultimately, as long as people understand you, that's when communication is happening. Okay, I'm just going to pick one more person before we jump into this evening's program. So I really want to get the opportunity to know you guys tonight as well. Let's see. Gemala Hita. And I hope is it Jamala? Betul tak? Okay, let me try and unmute you. Hang on. Okay. Gemala, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, hi. Am I pronouncing your name right? Could you
Yeah, it's right. It's Nadia. So first of all, I want to introduce myself. My name is Kumala and I am 18 years old. Now I'm studying in Institute Teknologi Surabaya. And the reason I joined this webinar is I want to improve my skill in public speaking, because sometimes my problem is when I speak in public, I look at my audience and they look boring or annoyed with what I say, and I just want to know how I can deal with it so I can feel free to speaking English, Miss. That's all.
Thank you so much, Gamala. I really, really appreciate you sharing that. Okay,
Yeah.
It's been splendid hearing from Gamala, Arkan, and Dila. So now
Thank you.
it's time to dive into our program. So the reason why I wanted to find out, first of all, to get to know my amazing crowd here tonight, the amazing group of people that we have here, but secondly, to show all of you as well that we all have very, very similar challenges and struggles anytime we go on stage. What goes through our mind? If you look at the person to the right of you and to the left of you, we all have the same thoughts that are going through our mind. So tonight, I would like to share with you 3 elements that are going to help you not only gain confidence on stage and really fight those butterflies so that you can speak with confidence, but also to captivate your audience. All right. So I'm not a big fan of using PowerPoint presentations, but I'm just going to use it merely to demonstrate. I'll be sending this deck to the team afterwards, so I think you guys will have access to it as well. But just for your information, it's going to be very brief, but feel free to take notes as we go along, as I talk about things tonight. Okay, so the PowerPoint is really just to support, to reinforce some of the key points. All right, so with that being said, let's pull up the first slide. Okay, hang on, let me just put it into presenter mode real quick. Okay, so tonight, as mentioned, we're going to be talking about how to get your audience's attention. Now, we're not going to go into all those nitty-gritty details just yet because, to be very honest, public speaking and getting better at it is really very much about a journey. So tonight, what I really want to do is give you guys the perfect foundation that's going to set the path moving forward so that your entire public speaking journey is going to be a nice breeze. Okay, so what we're going to talk about is 3 different things. We're going to be talking a little bit about mindset. We're going to talk as well about, we're also going to talk about the types of understanding your audience, and we're also going to talk about converting your energy. So for the first thing we're going to talk about this evening, like I said, is going to be all about mindset. I'm just going to keep this up here for a second if you want to take a screenshot, but I'm going to be breaking it down and we're going to look at each other face to face as we go about it. So there are 3 elements to mindset, and I would love for all of you, by the end of tonight, even if there's just one thing that you do, if you can internalize these 3 traits, it's going to put you in a much, much better position the next time you find yourself having to go on stage in front of an audience, okay? And they are essentially humility, openness, and enthusiasm. So let's break them down one by one. What do I mean by this? Now, internalizing these 3 values is super, super, super important, and here is why. So number 1, humility. Humility, what does that mean? Do you guys know what the word humble means? So humility is essentially when you have a sense of humbleness, right? When you're not that sombong, you know, you're very grounded, you're very down to earth. That's in general what having humility means, right? Where you put your ego aside and you basically are putting other people first. That is what humility means. And why is this important? Okay, I'm going to share this with all of you. It's extremely important anytime you are doing a presentation to have humility, because what it does is it pulls down a barrier. You know, there's always, if not a physical barrier, like a podium between you and your audience. If there's no physical barrier, quite often if you see speakers on stage, there's always an invisible barrier. And this invisible barrier is there because of a lack of humility. And I'm going to be really real with you guys. I know many of you are students still, but once you hit the working world and you start to climb in your career, you become, manager, you become director, you become the CEO of a company. I'm telling you this, you will see it. The higher you climb, the more and more people love you, right? People will adore you. You have so many people who will suck up to you and praise you, right? And no matter what happens, you have all these fans. And the higher you climb in an organization, the more dangerous it becomes, because your ego very quickly becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that does not happen. You want to keep your ego at the door and instead really focus on you serving the audience. Now I want to ask you guys a question. Let's just pick a random person here. So Kizia Angelica, I'm going to unmute you real quick. Okay, Kizia, I want to ask you a question. You know, when we talk about public speaking, right, what's the first image that pops into your mind? What does it entail? When you say public speaking, what's the image that you have?
The first image that pops in my mind is talking in front of the class, like at school, or giving a speech at school.
Okay, perfect. That's exactly the answer that I want. And if you think about that, right, if you amplify that, after you progress from school, that same scenario becomes talking to an audience, but on a big stage. That means it very well could be you at a conference, right? Let's say when you start working in future, you're at a conference, you have the spotlight on you, you have the microphone. And even in school, let's say if it's during an assembly, right? You are one person alone on that stage with a microphone with the spotlight on you. It's a very, very powerful moment. And in many ways, it can be abused, right? Because you can imagine how movements, how civilizations have been, world wars have been caused thanks to speeches, really powerful, influential speeches. And so we need to remember anytime that we go on that stage, whether it's to a classroom of people or on stage at a summit, at a conference, we need to remember that there's a responsibility there. And I'm going to give you an example. When you don't have humility, what tends to happen is you tend to think that in that moment, the spotlight is on you, that moment is all about you, but that's not the case. What's really the case is it should be about your audience. Whoever you are speaking to, they are actually in the limelight. And I'm going to give you a very, very pertinent example. In fact, this happened here in Malaysia like last month, right? This is a scenario where I'm not going to name names, but I'll just share the context of what happened. So it's a very big company. It's a government-linked company, and there was an accident that happened. You guys might have even read it in the news. Our public transportation system, there was an accident where two carriages collided, right? And there was a press conference where the chairperson actually became the spokesperson during the media conference. And instead of having humility, because in moments like this in a press conference, you want to be giving answers to the members of the public, right? You want to be able to give answers to members of the media. That's the purpose of it, right? You're there with some kind of value, some kind of information that's going to benefit the audience. But what happened in that scenario was this particular person actually ended up saying things that fueled his own ego, right? You can even look it up, like it's all on social media, and fuels his own ego. He said things that were completely inappropriate. And what actually happened in this day and age of social media, when people have their cameras out and about, it went viral. And within 2 weeks, he was actually sacked. He had to step down from his position. So that was a very classic case in point that just happened recently, where he did not have the basic elements of humility. And whenever we are presenting, the bigger you get, the more important you get in life, the easier it is to forget that humility and instead let your ego take over. And this can truly compromise your connection with the audience, right? What happens in a situation like this? That barrier, if you have an ego, goes all the way up, and people on the other side, your audience, is not going to be able to resonate or relate to you at all. So that's rule number one. If you want to captivate your audience, you need to make sure in your mindset and how you go about things that you always internalize that element of humility, okay? I hope you guys understand the first point, okay? So moving on from humility, I'm going to share another very important value that we need to internalize as well as part of our mindset as a good communicator. And this is about being open. And we're going to address some of the concerns that you guys mentioned earlier, where you're worried about judgment, you're worried about what people think of you, right? So this is truly a different way of looking at things. So why do I say being open? Now, being open is very closely related to being humble, but it's acknowledging, instead, being open is acknowledging that maybe you are not going to be the only person in that room who has all the knowledge. Let's say I'm presenting, right? I'm here to present something of benefit, something of value to my audience, right? That's the main reason why I'm presenting. However, I need to acknowledge that every time I go up on a stage, there's a very high chance that there will be somebody in the room who is older, who's wiser, who's smarter, and who's more experienced than me. Now, if I'm open to this idea, right, what happens is that I suddenly become a lot more accepting of people's opinions. So what most people do, let me tell you this, is they will go into a presentation, and maybe this has happened to you in school before. You go into class, you're presenting something to the rest of the classroom, and you feel like you have to have all the answers. After all, that's why you're presenting, right? Because you have information, you have values, something that's going to benefit your classmates. However, what happens very frequently is you end up putting all this pressure on yourself to know everything. Now, I'm not advocating you don't have to do research, that you don't have to do hard work. Of course, you have to go into the situation very well prepared. But when we acknowledge that, okay, I've given my 110% into this project, I'm going to present it to the audience now. I need to accept that if somebody asks me a question, and let's face it, that's part and parcel of presentations, people are going to ask you questions at the end of it. If someone is going to ask me a question and I think, okay, I'm closed-minded. I think, well, only my answer stands, and whoever asks me anything is just trying to poke a hole in my presentation. If I look at them and dismiss them and say that they're wrong, what happens? I'm creating a huge disconnect with my audience because I'm not even acknowledging that person's opinion. And I see this happen all the time, right? People go on stage, they present their stuff, and the moment someone asks a question and says, hey, Nadia, I think that I don't think your answers are correct, or I think that it should actually be X, Y, Z, but what you've told us is that it's A, B, C. What should I do in a scenario like that? Well, most people would say, I know that I'm definitely right. I've done this research, and and basically dismiss the other person by saying that they're wrong. We don't want to do this because this creates a confrontational environment. Instead, what you want to do is be open. And remember, being open means acknowledging that there's always going to be people who might be smarter than us, more experienced than us in the room. And this allows us to then change the dialogue, change the conversation. And so now what I would say to the other person is, if they tried and pointed something out in my presentation and they came up with a different conclusion, I would then say, of course I'm really confident, like I've done my research, this was the conclusion that I came up with, but thank you very much for your for sharing your feedback. I love what you had to say there. It's very interesting. And I would love to find out how you came up with that conclusion. Perhaps we can continue this discussion offline afterwards, right? That would be one way to approach it. Or let's say, for example, someone approaches it and says, they put out their hands and they say, well, what about looking at it from a different perspective? What if we took things from a totally different other angle? In a situation like that, instead of dismissing them, I want to be open and say, thank you again for your suggestion, and admit that, you know what, that's actually really cool. I had not thought of it from that perspective. Suddenly, the dynamics of the entire room changes. Your audience is not going to think of you as this closed-minded person who's just trying to impart what they know on you without actually receiving any feedback, right? Because when you do that, not only is it disrespectful, you completely are unable to captivate the audience because they already know you're not interested in hearing from them, right? So when you change your approach and you start to be open and you acknowledge and you say, hey, that's a really cool idea. I love that perspective. I'm going to incorporate that into my research next time. The rest of the audience in the crowd are also going to think, hey, not bad. Nadia's actually open to ideas. She's actually taking what we have to say seriously. She's actually valuing my opinion. And so now, going back to what Dila, you mentioned earlier, you're worried about how people are going to judge you. Suddenly, that judgment is not so scary because when you take those questions, you're actually legitimately thinking, I want to know what you guys think, right? I'm open to ideas. And for yourself, you start to look in the eyes of your audience as someone who is collaborative, who is looking for partnership, who believes in progress, who believes in innovation, right? Because remember, no civilization was built just by one person, right? It's always thanks to discourse, to conflicts, to differences in opinion, and that's what makes things progress. And you want to show that to your audience to be able to connect and to captivate them. Okay, are you guys with me so far? If you are, give me a thumbs up, guys. Semua boleh faham? I'm so sorry. My bahasa is like kurang pasti lah. So if I could do all this in bahasa and do it like Duolingo, I totally would. But anyway, I hope you guys are following me so far. So now we're going to move into the third element of mindset. Okay, we've talked about humility, we've talked about being open, and now we're going to talk about the third element, which to me is one of my favorites because it really is a game changer. So for all of you who are really here to learn about how to captivate your audience, listen closely because this is a total and utter game changer. The third element when it comes to your mindset, right, is all about enthusiasm. It might sound simple, but you'd be surprised how little you see this on a stage. So let me explain what I mean by enthusiasm. I mean semangat though. When you talk about something, you gotta do it with semangat, right on. If you don't have that enthusiasm, how do you expect the rest of your crowd to be excited? Can you imagine if I talk about public speaking like this and I say that, today we're gonna talk about public speaking. Are you guys excited? I don't think so, right? Yeah, you catch my drift, right? So you have to be the source of that enthusiasm. Without that, you are not going to captivate your audience, guaranteed. Now, the beauty about it is that we are in charge of how we feel, right? I've had many, many students come up to me and tell me, but Nadia, what if what I'm talking about is so boring, I have no interest in the topic myself. How am I supposed to be enthusiastic about it, right? I'm sure you guys have all had to do this before when you have to give presentations. You have to maybe talk about history lesson and you can't be bothered with what's happening, but you have to somehow be enthusiastic. How do you do it? Well, what you need to do is to find that little element in that topic that connects, right? That you can empathize with. So I'm going to give you an example, like a real life example of something that I've had to do in the past. As a master of ceremonies, I've hosted for thousands of corporate events, all kinds of events. Some are more glamorous than others, I would much rather host an Aston Martin or a Bentley event or a fashion show than, let's say, something about diapers, right? I mean, there's a huge difference between the levels of excitement, right? So what do? If it's a nice, cool car, of course it's easy to get excited about. Maybe if it's about fashion, of course you're excited about it. But let's say if I'm not a mom and I have to talk about diapers, how on earth am I supposed to be excited? So here's what you do, okay? And I want you guys to use this example in your life as well, okay? So I've had to do this before where I'm not a mom, I have to talk about diapers. I'm talking to the media, there's a lot of guests, we've got celebrity friends and everything. I can't afford to be unenthused about this, right? So what do? I have to have empathy, put myself in the consumer's shoes. So let's say we're talking about mommy. What does mommy want? What do moms enjoy? Of course, as a mother, you want to have me time, right? You're busy running around 9-to-5 job, maybe. You also have to take care of the kid. You also have your husband nagging, never doing laundry, not doing this and that. So as a mom, can you imagine if those diapers, the new product that they're launching, allows you to have 2 extra hours without changing the diapers? For me, it's like, I don't care. But for a mom, oh my gosh, they have 2 extra hours of their life where they can actually sit back, watch some Netflix and relax. Betul tak? So if I put myself in her shoes, suddenly I can feel excited. I know why this product is going to be really, really enticing for the audience that's listening, right? If I put myself in their shoes. So I can channel my enthusiasm into anything. So the same goes for you guys. Let's say you have, okay, let's ask Alodia Keisha. I love your name, by the way. Tell me, what is the next presentation that you think you might have to do? Or what is one subject you don't find exciting at all and you sometimes might have to do a presentation about?
Well, just like what you said before, it was history.
Okay, cool. All right, so history, right? And I'm sure many of you might agree. History can be a bit bosan lah, kan? So what do? Now, I want you to think in terms of your classmates, right? Because they are probably going to be thinking, well, I'm equally as bored about history as you are, right? So what can you do to get excited about it? Alodia, I want you to think of one thing now, based on what I just said. In history, let's say the last subject that you've learned, what is the one thing that you can get excited about in that story? What are you currently learning in history?
I forgot about it.
so boring sampai tua. Okay, no worries. Let's pretend then. Let's pretend that you're presenting for your next history class, right? And let's just say in that story you're talking about some battle that took place in 1920 something, right? 1929, some battle happened. So how do you get enthusiastic about it? When you're talking about that, I want you to literally put yourself in the shoes of the two heroes, right? That were involved in that battle. And think in their terms, like what it must have been like in that era, right? Go into their shoes and feel what they must have felt, right? So maybe they saw hunger, they saw pain, they saw bloodshed, they saw all these awful things, and they had to fight for their country back, right? So even if you're going into history, you can do the same thing. So I want you to do this at Alodia. The next time you have to do a presentation for history, try and do that. Try and put yourself in that human shoes, right? Have that empathy and bring that story to life to captivate your audience. And if you do your presentation like that, I guarantee your classmates are going to enjoy it.
Okay, thank you so much.
So I hope that helps you. Okay, so speaking of which, those are the 3 parts to mindset, right? If you guys can internalize these 3 things, remember, humility, openness, and of course the last one, as I mentioned, was enthusiasm, right? Humility, openness, and put our ego aside. We want to remember it's not really about us. It's about our audience. And we got to make sure we cater to our audience, not to ourselves. And that's how we bring down the barrier, when we can resonate with our audience, right? Number 2, openness, where we talked about being open to the fact that, of course, there's going to be someone who's smarter, more experienced than us, right? The sooner we accept that, the better, because it allows us to really be excited about hearing feedback, constructive ideas to your presentation, rather than shying away from it. And again, this is going to help you captivate and connect with your audience, because they will view you as someone who's actually there for the right reasons. And thirdly, as we talked about enthusiasm, it's all about ensuring that you inject that energy into your presentation. Now, you don't have to confuse enthusiasm with talking really loudly. That's not what it's about, right? But it's injecting your passion into it, okay? All right, so now we're going to move into the next portion of my presentation today. If you guys have any questions throughout, please feel free to drop them in the comments section as well. And I think we will be able to tackle them later on. So if you come up with a question midway, just feel free to drop it in. Okay, so moving into the next one. Oops, hang on. Let me go back. Give me a second. Okay. So moving on, we're going to talk about understanding your audience. Okay. So for those of you who are always concerned about how to actually get people involved, how do I get the crowd to actually be interested in what I'm saying? Well, this is key. Okay. Understanding who is in your audience. So essentially there are 3 types of people. So as I'm talking to you guys right now, I know for a fact there are going to be these 3 groups of people. So some of you may be able to resonate and nod along. Maybe at the beginning, at the start of the webinar, you might have fallen into one group of these people, okay? So let's go through them one by one. So we have the fans, what I call the dismissers, number 2, and the zombies. So which one are you? Let's break it down. All right, so number 1, let's talk about the fans. So when I talk about fans, it's literally like, any of you guys love BTS, by the way, or Blackpink? Show of hands. I see some smiles. I see you guys. Okay, so you imagine if you go to a BTS concert or if you go to a Blackpink concert, I'm sure even if any of the artists fall down, sing the wrong lyrics, you are still going to be like, yeah! You're still going to cheer them on, right? You don't care, right? You're still going to love them regardless. Like, it's an unconditional love, right? So that's what I mean by fans. And in every audience that you get, whether it's your classroom, whether it's at a conference later on when you're working, or in the boardroom, you're always going to have one of these 3 types of people. And the good news is the fans, there will always at least be one fan there. That means one person that likes you no matter what. So they are usually people like your family members, right? Your mom and your dad, where even if you do really poorly on stage in your storytelling competition, they're like, yeah, you're the best, right? So you have your parents, you have your friends, and of course, your besties, your teachers, all the people that would support you, right? Those are considered your fans. Even if you are presenting in a room full of strangers, you will still have fans. Why? Okay, let me ask you this and nod your heads if you agree. So I'm sure you guys have been into a situation where you've gone to a conference and you see the person on stage and you don't know why. You cannot explain it, but you just like them, right? You feel like you want to be rooting for them. Have you ever felt that before? Where you see someone on stage, even though memang you tak kenal, but you feel like, I like this person lah, I want to root for them. So the good news is, whenever you go on stage, there will always be also someone in the audience who feels that way about you. So you don't have to worry. If you're presenting to a group of strangers, I guarantee you have your fans in the crowd, okay? Now, the second group of people, I'm going to explain why we need to understand this in a moment. So the second group of people are what I call the dismissers, right? Dismissers, do you guys want to give a guess? Let's see. Chevrolet. Hi, Chevrolet. Okay, do you want to give a guess what the dismissers mean? Oh, wait, let me try and unmute you. I think it's pronounced as Chevrolet. Cheverly. Is that you, Chevrolet?
Hi.
Hi. I just wanted to ask if you can give a guess what I mean by the dismissers. What do you think consists of a dismisser? What do you think this person is going to be like? How would you describe them?
I don't know.
Would you like to give it a try? Do you know what the word dismiss means?
I have heard that before, but I still don't know what is the right meaning of that word.
Okay, no worries. No worries at all. Okay, so I'll share that with you today. Okay, so for those of you who don't know what dismissers are, right, it comes from the word dismiss. So to dismiss means even though you don't know the person, you see them for the first 2 seconds, you like, nah, I don't like this person. I dismiss you straight away, right? Like you're basically dismissing the person before you've even given a chance to get to know them. That's what a dismisser is, okay? And all of us will encounter these dismissers when we go on stage. Basically, they hate on you, when you have haters, but you don't know why they hate you, right? On social media, I'm sure you guys are the same, right? You check your Instagram, you go through the reels, you're like, oh, this one I like, I'm a fan. This one, I'm like, that's good. Then you scroll, right? So that's what I mean by dismisser, where you look at them and you don't like them straight away, okay? So there will be people like this in every audience as well, okay? And by the way, thank you, Chevrolet, for sharing as well. I really appreciate that. So dismissers are important because they are essentially people in the audience who we have to deal with, whether we like it or not, because they are people who look at you on stage, they decide, you can see from their body language, they will sometimes start to do this, they look bored, they're not interested, right? Because they feel like they don't like you, okay? So let's just address that first. Now, we move into the third group, and I'm going to explain why all this is important. So the third group of people are, do you guys remember? They are, Tiara, do you remember the little slide just now? Hang on, let me unmute you. Hi, Tiara. Okay, so we have the dismissers. Hi, Tiara. And do you remember what the last one was on the slide? And no worries if you can't remember. I only flashed it for a moment, but I thought I would just check in and see if you managed to spot it just now. I'll give you a big hint. They are the zombies. Okay. Anyway, thank you so much, Tiara. By the way,
I'm sorry. My connection is unstable.
No worries at all. No worries at all. I just wanted to kacha you, But anyway, I thank you for joining us here tonight, and I hope you're enjoying the session so far.
Yeah. Nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you too. Okay, so the third group of people is, you guys will remember now, they're the zombies, right? They're the ones who, why do I call them zombies? Because they are the ones who are constantly on their phone. You talk, you have the CEO, you have you have your Britney Spears or whoever enters the room, and they don't even look up because they're totally in a world of their own. That's why I call them the zombies, right? So in every group of people, and even in tonight's webinar, I'm sure we have zombies too. There will always be at least one or two people like this, right? And it's okay. So the key is to understand that there are 3 different types of audiences, okay? And if you want to captivate your audience, you have to understand this. Because in public speaking, you have two components. The first component is your content. Your content is basically your core message, right? It's what is your value proposition that you are offering to your audience? What is the benefit of your speech, right? That's your content. What is the main message of your speech? It's also all about your structure. It's about your transition words. All of this falls under content, okay? How easy you make it for people to understand, how clearly you speak. Then we move into the second component. So you've got content, the first component, and your second component is delivery. So delivery is all about your intonation, right? When you speak, the ebb and flow of your speech. It's about your body language. It's about your facial expressions. It's all of these things combined that forms delivery. Okay, so as a good communicator, as a good public speaking presenter, you have to be able to master your content and your delivery. Okay, so when you do this, when you combine great delivery with great content, that is when the magic happens. And that's when you are able to captivate your audience. Now, here's the thing. I want to ask you guys a question. Let's ask Azza this. Hi, Azza. Apa kabar? Okay, I'm going to unmute you. Okay, so I want to ask you this. Whenever you give a presentation, right, your audience is supposed to be paying attention, right? So on a level from 1 to 10, where do you think the level of attention is when you start a presentation?
I think 7. I don't know.
7? It's okay. Give a guess. Give a guess. Tak apa. Hantam je.
7.
7? Okay, cool. All right. Thank you, Azza. Okay, let's ask and see. Thank you. Let's ask Aldebaran. Aldebaran? Is that right? Cool name. Aldebaran, what do you think when you start doing your presentation? Is your audience attention level 1 or is it level 10? Level 1 being the lowest,
I think it's a
10
5.
being the highest, by the way.
I think it's a 5.
It's a 5? Okay, cool. Why do you say it's a 5?
Because it depends if you deliver your presentation correctly, they're gonna be, oh, it's a 10. Wow, yeah, this is a great person. But if you deliver it badly, they're all gonna be them zombies.
Absolutely. Well said. Okay, cool. Thank you very much, Aldebaran. That was a great answer. So here's the thing, right? Both Azza also gave a really good answer, even though she was guessing, she said level 7. So here's the thing. You don't necessarily know what your audience attention is going to be when you go into the room, right? So if, for example, just before you go on stage, maybe you have an amazing presenter and they just finished and everyone's all on a high. Everyone's excited and all the focus is on the stage, right? It could be that the attention is 10. But many situations, you have to assume that the audience attention is most probably going to be a 1 or 2. And here's why. Because the majority of time, whenever you, even in school, right, if your class is the 7th class in the day, that means from 7 a.m. sampai pukul 12, you guys have been like slogging away, right? And then your presentation is at 12 p.m. after lunch, then most likely everyone is going to be very tired and they're not going to be interested. The same goes for work, right? When there's conferences, people are so bored. They have 10 meetings in a day. Either they have to go for a conference and pay attention. People are not interested, right? So more likely than not, we want to assume that the attention level is actually a 1 or 2. Now, going back to understanding our audience, okay, if you have your fans, then chances are at the beginning of your presentation, they could very well be at a 10 because they're like, oh my God, Nadia's going to go on stage. I'm going to clap for her and cheer her on, right? But if I don't use my content well, right? So they might be cheering for me when I go on stage, but as soon as I go up, if I bore them to death with my delivery and my content, very quickly, that attention is just going to be on a downwards trend. It might just take a nosedive straight away, okay? Now, that's the first group of people. The second group of people, for the dismissers, they are most likely going to, without a doubt, go in with a level 3, maybe 4, because they're interested to see what you're going to do, but they don't really like you, so they're not going to give you their full attention. So we need to be aware of this. And for this group of people, for the dismissers, right, the ones that don't like you, your content is going to be key, because they may look at you and think, I don't like this person. But if your content is valuable enough for them, if you are offering them some insight that they've never ever considered, right, that they can actually benefit from, midway through your speech, they're going to slowly start to change their mind about you. And in all likelihood, by the end of your presentation, they will actually say nice things about you. They might actually say, oh my gosh, that was way better than what I expected it was going to be. And we all meet that one person, right? Where we're like, I don't like this guy. But then we talk to them, and in the midst of conversation, the content, what they're speaking about, makes us change our mind, and we do a 360, right? We think, wow, I totally got that wrong. I completely misjudged the situation. And it turns out that dude's really cool, right? So we need to remember this about the dismissers. Our content has got to be king. Now, the third group of people, as Aldebaran said, very likely the entire audience could be zombies by the end of the day. Well, the zombies are the ones who, by the way, you want to take note of. They usually are the ones who sit at the back of the classroom, right? They're also usually the ones that are on their phones. If you see that these patterns in your classmates, or the next time you have to give a presentation, okay, these are the zombies. I need to do something about this, right? Because if their attention is at a 1, right, and you go ahead and you start doing your presentation and you go into the heart of the content, and their attention is not even 5 or 10, there's no way that you are going to be able to get your message across. And remember, as communicators, what is our number one goal, right? As public speakers, you want to make sure that people not only receive your message, but they are able to process it, digest it, and then come up with a decision, right? So if you are not even able to get the zombies to have their attention up to a 7 or a 10, then that communication is not even going to go through. That transmission won't even happen. So we need to address this. We need to captivate their audience right from the very beginning. So here's something that I often do. If it's a physical event, the best thing you can do before you go on stage, let's say your classroom is looking really bored, and everyone's looking really bored, you can actually not play by the rules. People always think you have to stand on top of the stage, right? That you have to be at the front of the classroom. Don't do that. Take your time to move around the classroom, right? Go up to your friends, go up to the zombies at the back of the room who are not paying attention and ask them a question. Say, hey, how's it going? So today I've got a really interesting topic. But before I do that, I want to ask you a question. You ask your classmate that question. The guy who's on his phone or not paying attention or talking to his friend will have no choice. They will turn to you and they will actually answer your question, right? And this gets them out of their zone and puts them in the present moment. So we need to do this. And more, I really feel for you guys, because you guys are growing up in a world where social media, you have so many distractions all the time. And show of hands, are you allowed to bring your mobile phones to school, guys? Like, are you allowed to have them on in school? So yeah, there you go. That is your number one zombie creator right there. That is literally producing zombies as we speak. So I feel for you guys, because it's really a tough crowd that you have to deal with on a daily basis. But what we can do is remember that you and I, we're all humans. And at the end of the day, sometimes all you need to do is literally snap them out of the zone, bring them into the present moment. And even something as simple as going to the back of the room, asking them a question, and not only one person. So you don't want to, here's the key, you don't want to single out one person and make them feel bad. You want to make sure that you actually ask a few people at the back of the room, right? Or around the classroom, and say, okay, you ask them, okay, what are you excited about for today's topic? Move to the next person. What are you excited about for today's topic? And then you go to the front and then you introduce the entire program that you've got in store for them. So that way they're not left out. And number 2, you're ensuring that all pockets of the classroom are engaged before you start presenting. So when you do this, you're able to get the attention from a 1 up to a very good and strong 8 to 10. Now, my next question, although I think Aldebaran did a good job of actually summarizing this just now. He said that if you don't capture their attention, they're all going to turn to zombies. So remember that, because if you get their attention and it all ends up as an 8 to start, you've done your job, you've done the rounds, remember, you have to maintain it. It's not a given that, okay, I'm going to give Nadia my attention now. Halfway through, ada juga yang mungkin fall asleep, right? So you have to make sure that you have content it will dip naturally, okay? But you have to make sure that you have content that consistently gets them up here, right? Don't feel disheartened if sometimes people look a little bit bored, right? But if you see that and you can read your audience, like right now, I'm looking at Uni, and you can see, then you know you got to do something. You know you got to ask a question. You know you got to do something different. And it's totally fine. You know, you're not going to have everyone up here 100% of the time, right? But you know you have to do your best, not only through your content, but through your delivery as well. So when we talk about delivery, that means using your body gestures, using your hand gestures. I talk a lot about this to my students in my program, how to use your gestures effectively, how to use your facial expressions effectively, and more importantly, how to use your intonation and your voice to constantly get people engaged, right? Because if you have a monotone, it's not going to work. If I talk like R2D2 throughout the class, you are going to all fall asleep within 10 minutes, right? So it's very important that you know how to stress words, that you know how to keep them engaged throughout, right? So all these techniques are what are going to help elevate that attention up here. And that is how you can really captivate the audience. So to recap, right? What we've learned is in every audience, let's see, let's give a little, hang on, let me just go back to the gallery view. How do I find, okay, there we go. Oh, there's plenty more pages. Okay, Rana, hi Rana, Rana Kalsia, nice to meet you. Let me unmute you. Okay, I think, does that work?
Hi, nice to meet you too.
Nice to meet you. So Rana, I wanted to ask you a quick question. If you would be able to recap what the 3 types of audiences are that we just spoke about.
So there are 3 types of audience. The first one is fans, and the second one is dismisser, and the last one is zombie.
Yeah, awesome. Guys, let's give her a big hand. That was so awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much, Rana. Okay, so here's what we got to do. Remember, with these 3 types of audience, the reason why we got to understand who we have in our audience is so that we can strategize when we present, right? We now know, okay, I've got my fans, but I got to ensure my content is good enough to hold them throughout. We have our dismissers, but I have to make sure again here that my content is compelling enough to convince this group of people to buy into it. And thirdly, for the zombies, you have to ensure that you do something through your delivery. Don't play by the rules by just staying in front. Go into the crowd, engage with people, and at least get their attention up to a high from the very beginning. And also very important as part of this segment is remembering that our role as presenters is this. We're not there to convince everyone 100% by the end of it to be like, yeah, I 100% agree with you. That's not what we want to do. What we want to do is make sure that our message gets transmitted and that hopefully 100% of the people receive it. Maybe only 90% of them will process the whole thing, right? And at the end of it, maybe only 60% will take action, but that's good enough. What we want to make sure is not that 100% takes action, but if we can get 100% of them to actually be open to receiving the message and are able to process it, that's what we want to do. Because remember, at the end of the day, we don't want everyone to agree with us because the world would be a very boring place, right? You want conflict, you want differences in opinions. So never forget that. So the next time you think, my friends didn't like my ideas or my teacher didn't like my ideas, and you might feel kecil hati, you might feel like discouraged after that, right? Don't ever feel discouraged because we want people to have differences in opinions. And that's also how we can build on our ideas. We value their feedback, we respect their feedback, and quite often that's how you turn something that's just ordinary into extraordinary. Okay, so now we're going to move into the final portion of my presentation. Just give me one quick second. I shall pull up the last slide. As you can tell, I'm not a huge fan of PowerPoint presentations, and that's a big thing for a lot of my clients, which I tell them, because very often right now, if you use only PowerPoint throughout your entire presentation, people will not have accountability towards you. So we'll talk more about that later on, but I believe that's also a really, really big lesson that hopefully all of you can take away from today too. Okay, so let's talk about the last one here. So I want to ask you guys this, okay? So if you look carefully at the person, well, it's the same person, but the facial expression on the left and then the facial expression on the right. Okay, so I'm gonna try and see who I can get in the audience. Hang on, okay, let's see who we got here. Hi, Teresa Grace. How are you? Nice to meet you. Oh, okay, there you are.
I'm fine.
Hi. So I want to ask you a question. Did you manage to see the picture just now? Although it was a bit brief.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So on the expression on the left, what expression do you think that was?
Surprised?
Surprise? Yeah?
Yeah.
And what about on the right?
Happy?
Okay, cool. You nailed it. So thank you, Teresa. So on the left, Teresa said surprise, and on the right, it's happy. So it's very, very close. I would go one step further and say on the left, it was maybe even a touch of surprise, but like shock. Like that moment where you're maybe told the night before that you actually have to do a presentation, right? That tiba-tiba your teacher is like, okay, tomorrow, Rana, you are going to be presenting on ABC. And you're like, what? No, right? No. That's the expression that you would have, right? And on the right is one of excitement. Okay, so what we want to do to be able to captivate our audience is to ensure we are in the best position possible to do so. And how do we do this? We first need to address that feeling of shock, or in other words, anxiety, something that a lot of people experience, and myself, even till today, if I have a very big event, or let's say I have a huge star that I have a crush on that's going to be there, I get nervous, right? I'm not going to lie. And so what we want to do to be able to captivate our audience is address ourselves first. So if we have that shell shock feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. What? You mean I have to do this now? You want to eliminate that, right? So show of hands if you till today still struggle with any kind of anxiety or fear of public speaking. Show of hands. Icha, I see you. Riza, Jehan, and don't be shy if you do. I do too sometimes. Jessie, Agnes, cool. So many of you also feel it. Ilma, I see you too. Yeah. So all of us still feel that. Now, before you can go into more technical ways on how to capture your audience, one of the first things you have to do is really go down and address yourself. So if you feel before any presentation that you have this sense of anxiety, right? Where sometimes you have like your heart pounding in your chest. That's what I get. I get heart palpitations. Your voice starts to get thin. You you cannot even finish your ayat though. Your sentences are not strong. Or maybe you start to feel like your hands are shaking. So Alif, do you experience, where did Alif go? Hang on. Let's see if you can unmute yourself. Okay, never mind. I can't see Alif anymore. So let's pick Salwa. Hi, Salwa. Okay, do you suffer from anxiety when you when you have to do a presentation? Do you suffer from anxiety? Do you get nervous?
Yes.
Okay, so what are the symptoms that you have? Like, how do you know when you're nervous? How do you feel?
I feel, I don't know. I just nervous right now.
And when you get nervous, do you feel like your heart starts to go right? Or maybe your hands start to shake, right?
Yes.
So those are some of the symptoms. So some of us also even sweat. Thank you so much, Salwa, for sharing, by the way. So just so you know, I experienced the same thing as well, and I know many of us here do too. So what we want to do is then address that, right? How do we address it? We want to make sure that this feeling that we're experiencing, that we are aware of it, first of all. So that means before you do a presentation, I want you guys in future to always ask yourself, how do I feel? And if you realize that you are feeling anxiety, that you're nervous, that you really don't want to do this, and you're starting to think all kinds of things, then you can put yourself in check. Now, before we address how to go about this, I want to ask you guys a question. Let's see. I see Tito. Hi, Tito. Apa kabar? Oh, can you hear me, Tito? Hi, Tito. nak tanya sikit. Okay, so Tito, do you ever first of all, are you a fan of football? Are you a fan of football? Did you watch the UEFA Italy versus England? Oh no,
Pardon?
Oh, do you like football?
No, I don't like it.
No, okay then. Tell me about your favorite artist yang you paling suka siapa?
From your country, Malaysia.
Oh, who is it?
Datuk Siti Nurhaliza.
Ah, cool. Okay, Datuk Siti Nurhaliza. Got good taste. Cool. Okay, so let's pretend that just pretend. Nanti I kena beli tiket pula. Okay, so let's just pretend that suddenly your best friend said, "Hey, Tito, I have 2 tickets for us to go and see Datuk Siti Nurhaliza live." How are you going to react?
Oh, I'm very impressed. Oh, wow.
Exactly. But I'm sure it'll be even more semangat, right? You will be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it!" Right? That's normally how you would probably react, right? So I want you to remember this feeling. Okay. Thank you so much, Tito, by the way. Okay. So all of you remember what Tito just did, okay? So if you are excited about something, let's say if you guys watched that football match where England played Italy and you're into it and they scored, right? Italy scored the final goal. You're like, yes, oh my gosh. So that feeling that you get, whether you're watching football, whether you're watching BTS or Blackpink, right? That feeling that you get, that high, what you notice is that your body starts to react, right? You start to have that in your chest, right? Your heart starts to beat really fast. Your hands start to shake. You start to actually feel like you're running out of breath. All of the feelings that you get, that your body is going through, is almost the same as when you're nervous and scared. How crazy is that, right? So here's what I want you guys to remember. To convert the energy from nervousness to being excited, it's really up here. It's really down to your mental state, okay? Because your body, whether you're scared or whether you're excited, is actually going through the same thing. Do you guys agree? Do you know what I mean? So what we want to do is we want to identify, okay, before my presentation, if I'm feeling nervous, okay, I know I'm feeling nervous. So what do? I want to check my mental dialogue. What am I telling myself? So most of the time, what we tell ourselves before a presentation is, oh my God, takutnya, ramai orangnya. So many people here. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? What if I fail? What if people don't like my ideas? What if people think I'm stupid, right? These are all the questions that go through our minds. And I guarantee you ask your friend next to you, they're all thinking the same thing. So what we want to do is eliminate this. We know that we are doing this, we eliminate it. How do we get rid of this? We want to start by telling ourselves a different narrative. Take the pressure off yourself. You don't have to have all this pressure on yourself. Instead, put your focus on the audience. That means look into the audience, look at the smiling faces. I see Teresa, I see Vidya, I see Aisha, I see Tita, I see all these beautiful faces smiling back at me. I see Anga. And what I want you to do the next time you have to go on stage is look at your audience and focus on them instead, right? Look at them, give them a genuine smile, and feel excited, genuinely excited to get to know your audience, right? So instead of thinking, oh my God, I want you to think, oh my gosh, just so excited to meet every single person here. And this is literally what I do before I go on stage. If I have a big audience, I did the ASEAN Summit a few years ago. You know, President Obama was supposed to be there too, and I'm a huge fan. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do, right? So you look into the audience and you think, you know, I'm actually really excited to meet everyone. Everyone here has traveled from all over the world, and it's going to be a great event. So tell yourself, instead of, I'm so scared I'm going to mess up, I'm so scared this is going to happen, think and look at your audience and think, wow, what an amazing crowd. I can't wait to hear what they think, what their feedback is, right? And what their thoughts are about this entire event. And this, I'm going to tell you, will change everything. If you are nervous, it's going to now make you much more excited about that situation, right? Because you're no longer putting pressure on yourself. You are now directing that energy, that attention to your audience and to being excited about sharing my message to benefiting my audience. And that's another thing. So you're not just thinking about like, excited to meet them. But remember, you're a communicator, right? You have a message to share. So remind yourself that, hey, I can't wait to share my message, that if I can share this message and help one of my classmates get an A for their next exam, dude, that would be awesome, or next time when you own your own company, and you think to yourself, I can't wait to share about my company and hopefully help at least one person transform their life. Even if I don't get 100%, if that one person changes their life for the better, I'm happy. Right, so this is really what it's down to, because your mental state is important. Your physical state, from fear to excitement, is more or less the same. So you need to be very, very close attention to what are you thinking in that moment. If you realize you're nervous, start to identify your thought pattern and replace I'm scared with I'm excited, right? And keep telling yourself that. No one else is going to do that for you. So you have to do that for yourself. And after a while, you will believe what you're telling yourself too, right? You got to remember why you're there. Being humble, serving your audience. Okay, so guys, that wraps up today's presentation. Now I'm just going to recap really quickly what we've learned here today, okay? So we've talked about how to captivate the audience. Really goes back to the fundamentals of public speaking. The first thing you need to do is get your mindset straight, meaning that you want to be humble, you want to be open, and you want to channel enthusiasm to your audience. This helps, these three things combined help you break down the wall. It helps you to resonate and connect with your audience. And of course, you're going to have infectious energy that gets people excited about your message. Number two, we talked about the types of audiences. So remember, you got the fans, you got the dismissers, and then you got the zombies, okay? And we need to identify them when we go into the room. When you're going into the classroom, you can see who are your best friends. They'll be rooting for you, right? You know who the dismissers are, so your content has to be good. And you know who the zombies are, so you know you have to go around and engage to get their attention up here, to captivate them with your entire message, right? And that's just the beginning. The rest of it is also down to, remember, the two components of public speaking. Your delivery has to be good, and so does your content. And thirdly, we also talked about how you also have to address yourself. Because if you feel nervous before a show, right, or if you feel nervous before you present to your classroom, guess what? That vibe, that negative vibe, is infectious, and your audience, your classmates can feel it. So you need to make sure that that nervous energy becomes excitement, and then your audience feels not negativity, they're gonna feel excitement too. So there are other things you can do as well to relax. There are breathing techniques, there's body language, and if you guys are interested to learn more, I will share how you can do that and how you can actually learn with me in an actual program later on. But there are other things you can do. And alternatively, as students, you guys know there's an abundance of resources online. So you can go ahead and look up what are some of the breathing techniques that help you calm down, or what are some of the hand gestures that you can use to really elevate your next delivery and performance. Okay, so in a nutshell, we've covered those three things. So your mindset, understanding the types of audiences, and knowing how to convert negative energy into positive energy. Okay, so now I would like to open it up for questions. So if you guys have any questions at all, I'm not sure, Anthony, whether we should take them from the chat, or maybe we can unmute our guests. I'm not sure.
So I'll just explain a little bit about the Q&A session. So first of all, I would just like to say that was awesome. I think no one was a zombie tonight. Let's just personally give a virtual applause for Nadia Heng for that amazing presentation. Yeah. So thank you so much, Nadia, for that. I believe that each and every one of us will have learned a very important lesson today. Now we will move on to the question and answer session. Should any of you have any question for Nadia, you can use the raise hand function and unmute yourself after I call your name, or put your question in the live chat or YouTube chat, and I'll address your question to Nadia. All right, so maybe firstly we can have Miss Amelia Handoko.
I just realized, Anthony, I think we have some questions in the chat box as well.
Oh, yep.
I just saw
Can Miss Amelia? Hello?
Or shall I just dive into the questions? So maybe I can start by answering some of them in the chat box, and then we'll go to the ones that are live, right?
All right. Maybe we should move on with the questions.
Okay, cool. All right. So
okay. I think we should just move on to the live.
Hello.
Oh yes. Hi,
Can you
Amelia.
hear me? I'm sorry, I wasn't able to unmute myself.
Yes, we can hear
Hello,
you.
Nadia.
Okay, hi Miss Nadia. Thank you so much for the presentation. It was amazing. So my name is Amelia, and I wanted to ask you a question about how to decrease the tendency of covering our nervous nerves with the words like or Sometimes we tend to think of an answer, but it sounds like we are nervous, and I think that's a big problem for me. So if you could just share some of your, maybe I can replace it with a word, or how do I avoid to say or hesitate? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amelia, for your question. So here's the thing. I think that all of us put a lot of emphasis on the fact that sometimes we say too many mms and too many ahs. And I agree. It's if you say and ah too often in a sentence, or not even mms and ahs, I call them crutch words. Sometimes you might identify a friend of yours likes to say basically all the time, or sometimes they say, a lot, right? So it's not just a matter of mms and ahs, but there's all kinds of crutch words that you detect in other people's speech pattern. So I would say number one is to not get too obsessed with it, right? It's a concern if you use way too many that it dilutes your content. But let's say, for example, if you're in the middle of a discussion or you're in a forum and someone asks you for your opinion. So what you can do is, even if you're answering and if you have one or two mms and ahs peppered in there, it's actually 100% okay, because it makes it feel natural. It makes it feel really conversational. But if you want to eliminate them altogether, a great way to do it is record yourself when you're speaking, right? So let's say you're speaking to a friend. This will help you detect, first of all, actually how many times do you say mms and ahs, and is it really that bad? So if you're speaking for a good 5 minutes and you have like 10 mms and ahs in there, it's totally fine. But if you realize every sentence you have is connected with an then you need to address it. So how do you address it? You can start by just becoming conscious of the fact that you say or ah helps you realize that the moment you've said it, okay, I'm going to replace it with a pause. I don't recommend that you replace it with another word, because then you just have a different crutch word, right? And you don't want to do that, because you don't want to have too many basicallys or too many likes in your sentence. So you want to instead just replace it with a very calm pause. And that means being okay with having a little gap in between. So it could just be a very thoughtful pause. But like I said, if you only have a handful of mms and ahs and a long speech, then I wouldn't worry too much about it. But if you feel like you're overdoing it, then consciously make an effort the next time you say mms and ahs to just replace it with a pause. And keep doing this. So record yourself the next time. You're conscious of it. You practice doing it throughout the week. Try record yourself the following Saturday and see if you've improved. See if you can detect less mms and ahs. And the more conscious you are of it, the easier it's going to get to actually keep it under control. So I hope that helps answer your question.
All right. Moving on, we have a question from our live chat. So this question is from Nur Alia Putri. I know that eye contact is very important, but sometimes I go blank when I see the audience's eye. Can you give me advice for this case?
Okay. I love that question. And, I'm going to tell you guys a secret, okay? So actually I don't think anyone knows this. So when I was first starting out, I would actually do a lot of presentations with, okay, so here's the thing. I used to wear glasses, right? I had about 200 plus my power was. So when I first started my career, very often for gigs, I would go out on stage without my glasses, without contact lenses. And so I couldn't see the audience. So that made me a lot less nervous. But after a while being in this line, I realized that it's not a good thing. It's really important to train ourselves to be able to make eye contact with people. And even if it's not real eye contact, it should be perceived eye contact. So if you are on stage and you're dealing with a huge crowd in the audience, where like you could be looking at people's foreheads, they won't know, right? So if you really are nervous about making real eye contact, you don't have to literally look them in the eye, but look in the direction of people. You can stare at their foreheads so that you're not actually locking eyes, but to them, they will think you are. And make sure that you're also smiling as well. So you can kind of fool the audience into feeling that connection. But I definitely recommend once you're comfortable doing that first, you can slowly start to move into making real eye contact. And I can say this, Putri, that it's magical because when you start to know how to make eye contact and people smile at you, yes, the first few times you might kind of feel like, oh, you know, you kind of go blank, but after a while, you will start to get the hang of it. You will be able to recover. And when you recover, it's going to be even more magical because you've just made a genuine connection with that person. But always remember to pair your eye contact with a smile and a nod, right? Because that is really an art to not only giving out that positive energy, but for people reciprocating it and giving it back to you. And this creates this loop of positive energy between you and your audience. So creating eye contact is definitely important. So to recap, start simple, make sure that you look into the audience, stare at their foreheads first. Once you're comfortable doing that, slowly, you know, maybe if it's easier content, you're very comfortable with the content, then take a chance and start to make eye contact and smile. And after a while, you will build up that confidence, I promise. I hope that answers your question. Oh,
thank you for that, Nadia. Definitely, a smile is something very powerful. Right, next we'll have a question from our YouTube participants. So this question comes from Salak Kamila. Can you give me some advice if an audience is bored with my presentation? And what can I do to help my audience to feel comfortable again in my presentation?
Okay, so I would say this. If you feel like your audience is bored with your presentation, okay, this is actually something I teach in my course, right? But I'm just going to give you guys some tips here first. If people look bored in when it comes to your speech and your content, it could be one of two things. So number one, it could be that the content is not compelling enough. That means your content is not hitting your target audience. It's not what they're looking for, and there's no value in it. It could be that, right? But number two, it could be the delivery. So there might be a problem with the way that you're delivering. So it could be that your intonation is very dull. Maybe it's very monotonous. It could be that you're not utilizing the stage, right? You're not actually making movements on stage and moving into the crowd and engaging with them. So it could be either one of your two components that's missing something. So if it's your content, then, and if you're already on stage, obviously, tak boleh lah. You can't necessarily go back and change your whole topic. But what you can do is you want to try to rephrase things, make it personable, right? So I notice a lot of my students, they do this all the time. And this is like working adults where they write speeches. And a lot of the speeches are written in a way that it is written for an essay style, right? It's not actually in the format of a speech. So when you write a speech, you want to try to make it as personable and as relatable as possible to the people you're speaking to. In your examples, you want to try and use real life examples. And also even in just the vocabulary, the pronouns that you use. You don't want to talk as if you're reading a book. You want to say you. You want to address your audience as what are some of the things that you guys might be interested in learning versus just saying something along the lines of, here are things that people want to know. Like people is not you, right? So you want to use the pronouns. You want to address people directly by using a lot of yous and me's and us, right? And making it much more engaging. So hopefully that answers your question. A bit of a long answer there. And there's definitely much more that you can do to analyze your speech. The next thing I would say though, before I wrap up this answer is feel free to also ask your friends, your friends, colleagues, or classmates for feedback. Ask them, is it the content that's boring or is it the presentation style? And this will give you a very big clue as to what you need to work on. So I hope that helps.
Thank you so much, Nadia, for that. All right, now we'll move on to another question from our Zoom participants. Can I call on Dila Fergie? Am I pronouncing that right? Yep, Dila Fergie.
Dila! That was, she was the first girl I called out earlier, I think.
Oh, alright.
Hi, Dila.
Hi. Okay, first of all, I forgot to tell you that you're so pretty and perfect.
Oh, so sweet.
As you said earlier, that there are three types of audience when we are presenting. There are the fans, the dismissers, and the zombies. And I'm so thankful that you gave us that one tip, which is to get into the crowd of those zombies and being interactive with them. But what I would like to know is how do I captivate their attention beside that tip? Because I feel like I need a lot of it.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for your question, Dila. That's a very, very good question indeed. So besides going down and engaging with the audience, right? But I do recommend doing that first, because no matter what you do in terms of your content, it's going to be very hard to jump into your actual topic until you've actually gotten them out of the zone, right? And sometimes when you go on stage, because of that distance, it's very hard for you to, depending if it's in a classroom, it's a lot closer, right? But let's say if you're on a bigger stage, there's that physical barrier where they won't feel the need to be invested in your conversation. So that's why I suggest, if you feel like the crowd is really not paying attention from the start, go ahead and try and do that, go down with the mic. But let's say you're already on stage then, right? Then in your speech framework, right at the beginning of your speech, in your introduction, you should have an attention grabber. So an attention grabber can be in many different forms. In other words, it's your hook. So you want to drop a bomb, like a verbal bomb, right? Which is going to make people think like, whoa, what? Right? So it could be a shocking statistic, where you're dropping some information that's really, really shocking that people will just be stunned when they hear it, So you could use a shocking statistic. You could use a quote. Although I feel like quotes, you have to be really careful with them, right? Because if you are going to quote someone famous, like Winston Churchill, right? Or your former, any prime minister, right? You want to be careful, because sometimes those quotes, if they're not relevant to your topic, people will be wondering, why are you using a quote, right? And also, if you use a quote, not only do you need to make sure that it's relevant, but you have to deliver it well. That means you cannot just deliver a famous quote, like as if I'm just, reading out of a menu, right, for food. You have to actually deliver with that same kind of power. If it's an inspiring quote, you have to deliver it with inspiration. If it's a shocking, or if it's like most quotes are inspiring, but let's say if it's something that's supposed to provoke sadness, then again, you want to deliver it with the same kind of emotion. Okay, so just be careful, but you can use a quote that's appropriate for it. Alternatively, you can also use a question. And to me, questions are the best way to do it. Best way to blow your audience out of the water, because if you don't have the opportunity to go into your crowd to engage from on top of the stage or at the front of the classroom, you can always ask the general question to everyone in the audience. And through a question, I suggest you start off easy with a close-ended one, right? So close-ended question is a yes or no, or an A or B. You don't want to open a big, wide one unless you're super confident that your audience is going to respond. Otherwise, you might feel like, ala, tak ada orang nak jawab pun, like no one's even answering my question, right? So you don't want to do that. You don't want to back yourself into a corner. You want to ask a yes or no, an A or B type question. And when you do this, you want to actually get people to mirror your behavior. So meaning you're gonna raise your hand, you're gonna say, okay, so show hands, guys. How many of you here love Blackpink, right? Okay, so you can see everyone will either love or they won't love them. So you might see 50% of the audience raise their hands. And then you want to also address the ones who may not like Blackpink. Okay, how many of you hate Blackpink? Show hands. Okay, good. So you're giving everyone a chance in the room to actually interact with you. And once they do this, they are already invested in that topic because they have already taken action to answer your question. And by just simply making them or inviting them to do that, you've also basically ensured that it's a two-way conversation where it's not just you, blah, 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 but you want to hear people's feedback. And so people are far more likely to be captivated and want to pay attention to your speech. So I hope that answers your question, Dila. Awesome. Okay. Any more questions?
All right. I think we have time for one more question, and this question is from the live chat. From Gwendolyn Natania. Hi, Miss. I have a question about about how to be a professional master of ceremony. Well, you're not in a good, if you are not in a good mood that day, or maybe something happened which brings you down, like everyone else, you're gonna have a bad day someday. Yeah, so if you are distracted or you can't focus, or there's a technical issue, how do you handle this types of situation?
Very, very, very good question. So this is something where I'm very lucky, touch wood, right? So in my 10 years, I hope I'm not going to jinx it now, but in my 10 years of being a professional master of ceremonies, I've only been very, very, very sick once. And the problem with being an MC is you cannot take MC. You can't take a medical leave when you're the host, because and I remember what happened was I had an event, and I'm no joke, it was from morning until night. It was a morning session, there was an afternoon session, and there was a night session. It was a long day, I'm not gonna lie. I had to be there by 6 a.m., start by 8 to 12, and then it was a 3 to 5, and then 7 to 10 p.m. It was a long day. And I had a very high fever. And it was the one time where I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. I need to call another friend or another MC, but no one was available because it was so last minute. And I would never normally do that to a client. I would always, if I have a small sniffle or something minor, of course I'm going to do it. But that was the one time where I was so sick, I could barely function. And I think that would probably be the best example of when something really distracted me, right? So what I did was, I knew that I had to be there regardless. So I tried to make sure that when you're in that mindset, right, where you just want to sleep and you can't be bothered, right? Thankfully, our bodies will actually help us, right? Because you will, whether you like it or not, right, when you go on stage and you have a big audience in front of you, that adrenaline rush is real and it will kick in. So fortunately, it will actually help you kind of continue throughout. But in moments like that, you also have to really ensure that your awareness, you've got heightened awareness about what's going on around you, because one of the keys to being a skillful master of ceremonies is to be aware of what's going on. And so let's say something's happening, or there's a change in the program, or your client wants you to do something differently, you have to be able to immediately pick up on it, right? Otherwise, you're essentially going to destroy the entire event single-handedly, right? So I really had to make sure that, okay, I remember what my job is, what my role is, and just constantly being alert. So in a situation like that, you got to really force yourself. There's no choice about it, and force yourself to not be distracted. But in between, when I had short breaks in between, I would just take a nice nap, take lots of Panadol, rehydrate, and then get ready for the next session. The show has to go on. So I think a lot of moments like that, it's really a matter of your mental state, and you have to be willing to, you have to remember that your client is relying on you. And I think that in and of itself is enough of a motivating factor to make sure that you give your all. I'll give you another example of something that's happened to me before, and this will hopefully inspire you if you're ever in a situation like this. There was a huge artist that came to Malaysia, and they were here to perform at a private event. And she went on stage. She's a huge star. Like, I'm sure if I mention the song, you'll know it, but I won't say who it is. So she actually had to go on stage and perform her song. And for some reason, I'm not sure how or why it happened, she went on stage, the spotlight was on her, I was at the side of the stage, and she started to, the music started to play, she was going to do her opening number, and I didn't know the song, I didn't know all the lyrics to the song. I know it, like it's a song you hear on the radio all the time, but I didn't know the lyrics, right? So I didn't realize when she didn't actually come in when the music had started. And so 2 seconds in, or 5 seconds in or whatever, she said to the AV guys at the back, she said, hey, do you mind if we restart the song? And I thought there was an issue with the song. It happened a second time. And again, the same thing happened. The music played and she didn't sing. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening? And she said, she admitted, she said to the crowd, I'm so sorry, like I'm not sure what's going on. I think she must have been like suffering from jet lag or whatever it was. She couldn't remember the lyrics of her own song, like the first part of the song. And it was like, oh my gosh, so everyone was like shocked, right? And I was like, okay, I have to do something. So in that time, I had already thought, okay, what can I do? So I took out my phone, I Googled the lyrics, and I quickly ran on stage and I passed it over to her, right? So So luckily, she was so thankful because it didn't have this long, awkward lull where like very likely the client would have gotten pissed and be like, how can this happen? How do you know? It could have turned out so bad. So as an MC, the biggest advice I would have is to really always be on your toes and think 3-4 steps ahead of what can happen, and always believe that whatever can go wrong might go wrong. So come up with a plan A, plan B, plan C. If your client says, okay, we're going to do a digital event today, what is the plan B if your technical stuff doesn't work, right? If we're going to go on stage and then the VIP doesn't show up, what is the plan B? Okay, so if the VIP is not here, we're going to move the program around. So always address these small things so that you are prepared as possible for anything to happen, because they will. But thank you so much for your question. I hope that answers it, Gwendolyn.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much for everyone's questions, and thank you so much for the awesome answers, Nadia. I'm sure everyone has more questions, but sadly due to the time constraints, we must end the question and answer session right now. If you are still interested in contacting Miss Nadia, you feel free to search up Nadia in social media. There is plenty of courses which Miss Nadia is doing, so definitely check them out.
If it's possible, Anthony, before I forget, I actually have one more slide to just share, but I'll do it after your speech.
Yeah, sure. Just to commemorate today's incredible event, I would like to ask all participants to please turn on their cameras as we will be documenting our webinar today. All right, let's get ready for photos.
Smile.
Everyone smile. And 3, 2, 1. All right, let's give some time for the committee to take the photos. Since we have 700 participants today, it might take some time to take everyone's photo. Yep, okay. Let's just give it 5 more seconds. Okay.
Hearts, everybody!
All right. Before we close today, Ms. Nadia, you wanted to share something?
Yes, I did actually.
Of course. Sure.
Thank you so much, Anthony. It will only take a second. So it's just in case. So I'm really excited. I'll just quickly share what this is about. So I'm really excited because I've been working on my digital series since last year. It's finally almost done, and it's coming out in August. So I'm just going to share with you guys only and exclusively for today, and because I know that you're all students as well, so you guys would actually have access to it first. Like no one else even knows about this yet. So it's basically a digital masterclass, which covers everything about content, how to do speech writing, to delivery. So intonation, to body language, to facial expressions, and all the good stuff. So it's all in there. It's all going to be in the digital series, which you can access and watch anytime from the comfort of your own home, and you can watch it as many times as you like. There's even exercises in there, and it also comes with an ebook as well. So if you're interested, I'm just going to take a pic. I'm just going to share screen real quick and share what the offer is, and no obligations whatsoever. But I thought, it would be a really good opportunity to share it with all of you. So just give me a second. There we go. So this is the Masterclass digital series. If you're interested, all you have to do is simply drop your email to Anthony or anyone in the team. And so once it launches, I will actually notify you guys. But you just need to ensure that to get the student discount, the original price is $169 USD. Exclusive offer when it does launch will be $99, and as a student discount, it's going to only be $39 USD. But again, if you're interested, just drop us a message to the team. Send us your email address, and I will make sure to be in touch with you when it does launch so that you can have access to the special price. And if you are interested in just picking up on free tips on my Instagram, it's still fresh, it's still new, but my goal is to also share and spread as much knowledge as possible about public speaking. And if you can't afford a course yet, don't worry about it. Feel free to just hop on over to Articulate Community. That's what it's called on Instagram. And just stay in touch there. If you have questions about your public speaking journey, I'm always happy to help.
Thank you so much, Nadia, for that. All right, as we close our webinar today, I would like to thank our amazing speaker once again, Nadia Heng, for sparing time to come and share with us about some crucial insights regarding the struggles of public speaking. And again, thank you everyone who has stayed throughout the webinar, and we hope that you have learned something today and it will help your public speaking skills going on forward. We have now sent a feedback form link. Please don't forget to fill the feedback form if you like to see events like this in the near future. The feedback form will only open until 12 p.m. GMT +7, and if you cannot access the link, please do refresh as we may have a lot of people filling in the link. All right. On behalf of the GMG team, I would like to apologize if there were any inconveniences in today's webinar. With that said, see you next time, everyone, and thank you so much for today.
Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed it. See you guys next time. Bye. Thank you so much, Anthony. Thank you, Hara. Have a great week, everybody.
Thank you so much to Nadia.
Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone.